Good afternoon and welcome. I'm John Miller from Delta SaaS Services, and a very warm welcome to this new series on smarter sales and marketing. As you can see, we call this a webinar workshop series. I'm going to try something very different actually. We're trying to move away from kind of formal presentations and make it much more interactive. And we have a whole series of workshops lined up, as you can see here. So today we're really going to be introducing some concepts, some new ideas, some different media, some different formats, focusing on digital asset transformation, and also looking at how we can make digital content much more relevant and much more engaging. So we're trying to practice what we preach a little bit. Then in 2 weeks' time we've got another session which is more of a drill down into SaaS websites, platforms, interactive media, and again we're going to make it a workshop, so a little bit, those of you who are old enough to remember Blue Peter, we're going to kind of show you some of how we develop these things, some kind of before and after, and look at some of the methodologies and the latest tools that we're using. And obviously a lot of these tools are commonly available, and the techniques that go with them. The session a fortnight after that, on November the 14th, is focused more around sales and marketing platforms and customer engagement applications, a deeper dive on that. The session on the 28th of November is really looking, we're talking about smarter sales and marketing. We really want to look at the metrics that surround that, so we're very happy to have a guest presenter there, Rick Chapman, from the CEO of Softletter. Those of you who don't know Softletter, they do lots of annual surveys of the SaaS and cloud market, and they've got lots of the latest stats and benchmark data on key sales and marketing metrics. And finally, this year at least, although we may have 1 or 2 more titles coming into the series, perhaps early next year, is around digital sales transformation, looking at the latest tools and techniques. And for that, you will see there Mark Sweetco, the CEO of CETA, will be coming back to update us. He did some in our earlier series in the spring of this year, and since then he's been pretty much on the road non-stop, delivering workshops and helping companies execute digital sales transformation in the field, you know, literally from Japan, Mexico, Asia, and in Europe. So lots of very current ideas. Most people may have heard of us. We've been around for 23 years. Really the last 4, 5, 6 years we've been focusing on SaaS and cloud-based businesses. But it really struck us in that journey that many companies are some form of hybrid. Of course, they are born in the cloud, SaaS native organizations who haven't, if you like, got the legacy and history of some customers who are on premise and perhaps have started the journey in a much more digital way. But I think the majority of vendors, be they ISVs, managed service providers, systems integrators, their own sales and marketing are servicing this hybrid customer base, and they're also hybrid in their own techniques. And we'll kind of talk today and in the forthcoming workshops really about, if you like, yesterday's, the 1990s to 2000s sales and marketing approach, almost being the equivalent of analog as they move towards being fully digital. So that's kind of where we get our experience from, and as you see, we've got a variety of partners that provide complementary services to what we do, which is around cloud and SaaS business development, cloud and SaaS sales and marketing development. So maybe a checklist. I mean, it's been very interesting that the companies who have registered for this series, as you might expect, a cross-section of small and large companies, ISVs, registrations, for example, I'll just having a quick look now, you know, from Finland, France, Ireland, India, US, this is, you know, a global journey for everybody, and it's cross-functional. You know, there is interest, and we're talking literally to owners of companies, CFOs increasingly interested, as you might imagine, people who are directly engaged in sales, partnerships, and CMO, and to some extent. Again, this won't come as a surprise. Sometimes it's the sales and marketing teams themselves who are finding it more difficult to make the transition to adopt smarter sales and marketing techniques. Kind of, we've always done it that way. We've got to do our day-to-day business. We're constrained by budget. We're constrained by resources. So some of these things are perhaps maybe easier said than done, of course, but perhaps easier to identify if you're in a different functional area. I was in a discussion just this morning with an R&D team who are having the classic discussion with their sales team that they're too often giving in to customer demands and requests for new features and functions, you know, rather than forward selling what a customer may see as in terms of value. So don't let me get carried away on this topic, but you know, just in terms of an executive summary, I think one of the things we're still finding in hybrid companies is that they don't really have a clear idea of what the costs of customer acquisition and costs of sales are. Of course, there's many hidden costs through marketing, maybe through development, and in terms of support as well. And there's a lack of clarity about time to market. You know, it is hard, but people say, yes, there's no such thing as a typical sale, and it does vary, and it always takes this long, and we can't speed up customer decision-making cycle times. And that's true to an extent, but the reality is the economics of digital selling and SaaS and cloud are meaning that costs of sales have to come down year on year. And it also means, with some of these changes that are coming, I'll talk about later, that decision times and sales cycle times can and are being reduced. So, as I said, it does apply no matter what state your business is in, whether you're still today 80–90% selling on-premise solutions, you're in this hybrid arena, or you're a pure SaaS play. The other point I'd make, it does apply to the end-to-end sales and marketing process. You know, I was talking to a client a couple of days ago. We've got Marketo, so kind of, you know, marketing automation, so big tick in the box, problem solved. You know, probably not. We do get lots of questions. You know, we only sell to large enterprise, and there's a very rich services mix. So we have to have the face-to-face. We have to have the, you know, some companies I'm talking to, we still have to have the proof of concept. We have to have custom proposals. Not necessarily so. And maybe the final area to discuss with executives and with your company is, you know, it does have to be a structured process. Doing it piecemeal and the classic joints, if you like, or fault lines between sales, marketing, research, development, support need to go. Many companies are ripping up their old sales processes, you know, whether they happen to be 2, 3, 5, 7-stage processes, and kind of re-engineering them. And I'd also advocate that you should start today, and yes, you can do it in incremental bite sizes. And we're still amazed at, you know, how slowly some companies take this on board. You know, taking 9 months, a year to upgrade their websites, the tools and technologies that they're using internally are really behind what is available in the market. It's kind of practicing what you preach. But I could talk about that for hours. I think there are strong business drivers, and they're very much aligned to the reasons you'd perhaps want to transform your business more towards the SaaS and cloud market opportunities, because there is a redefinition of the IT business rules and models. Very definitely new ways that customers evaluate, buy, and use IT. Certainly, I'm sure you're all experiencing new competitors, and perhaps looking at new partnership opportunities. The rules on finance and investment and cash flow are changing from each and every angle. You know, whether it's you're a publicly quoted company, whether you've got VCP, private equity funding in there, whether it's the asset value of your business. Each and every rule is changing, and the impact on cash flow and how you invest and support in your sales and marketing processes. So for many people, there is no choice. The existing, if you like, analog sales and marketing has to change, the processes, the resources, the people. So we're going to talk over this series about how to do this in a practical way, and we're going to look at 10 different areas, I think. I'm sure you've all seen these types of charts before about sales and SaaS and cloud and the impact they're having on sales. The figures from Gartner's IDC, right source. If anything, we're seeing these reinforced in terms of how many companies now, end user companies, are on digital journeys, are in a hybrid mode. I would dare to say that the IT industry as a whole is kind of mid-pack. Let's say compared to pharmaceutical or retail or even energy sectors. So you can define this in a number of different ways, but I think people would now accept that a lot of the customer journey is done digitally. A lot of discovery is done up front before there's any direct contact, where there's any engagement with the sales teams. And I think it's also true, based on our experience, to say that the majority of companies are still analog. Someone only this morning gave me a great quote. Our sales force is all about shaking hands, having dinner, and buying cigars. And they were in large contracts up to $1 million US, but and I think it's universal across a lot of cultures. There's still an awful lot of face-to-face time and conventional ways of doing business. And it's not to say that, of course, that relationships aren't important. It's much more for those companies that are making as efficient and as effective as possible very scarce and very talented resource that you might have in large enterprise sales. So yes, companies are seeing revenues growing. This is just a snapshot from what Rick Chapman will be telling you. This is true of SaaS and cloud companies. And of course, companies who are in hybrid mode are seeing the sales increasing. As we know, a number of markets are quite buoyant, and there's growth coming back after some of the tough years of the recession and uncertainty. We're not going to focus on that so much. That's good, that's great, but we really want to look at cost of customer acquisition, because that impacts margin and ability to invest, and certainly sales cycle times and time to market. We know that with SaaS and cloud there are risk and opportunity. On the one hand, in terms of opportunities, the drive towards recurring revenue, the need to drive in new customers and lower cost of acquisition. The threats, as we know, the principal one is, one of the principal ones is around cash flow, and also having the right sales and marketing teams in the right roles with the right skills, and of course customer retention. If we translate that into what does that mean in terms of what are the 10 key drivers around reducing cost of customer acquisition and time to market, here are a few that we're going to discuss. I'm just going to take a minute or two in this introductory session to talk through them, and in the workshops over the next few weeks we will address each and every one of them. So today we're going to start to look at using new sales and marketing digital assets, and Chris is going to talk us through different examples of that, in terms of examples of the assets themselves and examples of how they can be used. And if I didn't say so at the beginning, I should have said, of course, there is the ability within GoToWebinar, which is the particular tool we're using today, to ask questions, to put a hands up, and partway through this session we're going to do a live online survey to sort of practice what we preach a little bit. So point 2 we're going to discuss is, yes, whilst there's going to be some level of investment, if you like, in new digital assets, Absolutely, there's no reason to throw away your existing assets, and that's really about transformation of those assets. And we'll be talking today about moving away from PowerPoint, moving away from Excel, whether you're using those to do quotations, return on investment, whatever functions you may have in terms of marketing. There are now alternatives and relatively easy ways to transform those assets. The third transformation we're going to talk about is the end-to-end sales cycle, and to really try and re-engineer that and to reduce the number of steps in terms of the length, the cost, and the time scale. I guess most people will have existing field sales teams, and as you know, there's a huge discussion as to can you transform them, can you convert the skills? If you've got new SaaS and Cloud products, do you need a separate or a new sales team? Well, that's a worthy discussion to have, but whatever your answer to that, there's certainly ways, digital ways, techniques that you can increase the efficiency and effectiveness of your field sales teams, and that's one of the discussion points we'll be having both today and, for example, in the session with Mark Sweetco on the use of digital sales techniques. Also, part of the equation is looking at ways to introduce more cost-effective sales resources, and this often manifests itself in terms of inside sales. And again, there's a discussion to be had whether these inside sales are an extension of your existing internal resources, or whether they in some form or shape should be outsourced, and also how far up the value chain they go in terms of selling. There's no reason why these days, and we see plenty of examples of it, that inside sales teams can't be very effective around new business, higher value solutions, large enterprise. So there's definitely a role to play. In terms of the efficiency of the field sales teams, certainly there is a need for new skills as well as new tools and techniques, and I just mentioned briefly that some of the digital tools and techniques, but I think new skills as well. There's kind of a feeling that value-based selling has had its day, and now it's kind of around challenger type sales, but quite often those skills don't percolate all the way through, and a lot of the skills that are going to be required will need transformation. If I move down this list as well, talking about sales and marketing budget and expenditure based on current metrics. So we still find that companies haven't got really good information, current information, their own dashboards, their own systems internally. It's getting better, it's improving, but as I alluded to earlier, you need outside benchmarks and metrics to really see that you're on the money. If your competition is 5 points ahead in terms of the cost of sale, that has an impact on the margin and the price point. Enable fast and effective e-commerce. We're still seeing, interestingly, any number of vendors who've only got a partial solution to e-commerce. Everything from the customer-facing aspects to their own back office, and again, having scalability on that has a significant impact on the cost of sale. From an admin point of view, from an implementation, deployment point of view. The ninth one we're going to talk about is constant contact sales support. It's not just the retention of your customers and winning new business, but it's the ability to upsell and cross-sell at a lower cost point. And again, there's lots of examples and ideas of doing that. And of course, there's a lot of technology around and available as people do move to cloud and SaaS in terms of infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, but also within applications themselves having much better metrics about who is using what and when, and the value ratios, where they're getting 80% of the value. They're the most effective tools that you can get that lead back into lower cost of sales to upsell and to cross-sell. So an awful lot of ground to cover, and perhaps on the right-hand side here, some examples of targets and metrics that should need to be met. I'm conscious as ever that I've overrun my introduction. I'm going to hand over to Chris now, and he's probably not going to talk to these titles. As I said earlier, the next section, we're moving away from PowerPoint. We're really going to go on a tour or a journey with Chris to look at digital content, to show and share with us some tools and some ideas. So, Chris, are you there? Are you ready?
Hi, John. Yes, I'm here and ready.
Okay, I'm going to hope that wasn't too much of a build-up for you. But I'm handing over to you, and we're looking forward to the tour.
Okay, well, thank you very much, John, and hello and welcome, everybody. So let me just put this into full screen. Okay, so I have my little helper app with me today, and we will show you something slightly different to PowerPoint. And actually, we can use these apps to help customers online discover products and services with embedded videos and media, with decision making, in an engaging and fun way for people. We can also use something similar with interactive video, where we can embed modules and collect information and have calls to action at the end, like contact a sales rep or a simple contact form. So I'm going to go ahead and start my little app up, and it should ask me if I'm ready to start the presentation. And I'm going to say yes, yes I am. So a few of the things I want to talk or share with you today are what's that, and I'll be going through what that is, and then I'm going to share a video on what's that, and then we're going to look at websites, platforms and portals. Now, I'm sure most of you know the difference, but I just want to share with you from my point of view what I think the differences are between websites, platforms and portals. And then for those of you who are joining us online, we have a chance and opportunity for you to join in with an interactive survey that will be presenting the results in real time.
Chris, on that, can I just say I've done a terrible job of introducing here, but in the chat function, in the chat box, there is a link there that you can just click on, and it will take you straight to the survey, the assessment when we're ready. Yeah, Chris?
That's correct. We'll also put the URL on the screen for everybody to view as well.
Great.
Okay, so then we'll look at some websites. I'll show you an example of what I think a good website should be like. This particular example will be based on a SaaS website. And then we're going to look at some apps and how we can use those to help engage with our customers. And finally, how we can use a different way of presenting things online. So I'm going to go and jump straight in here with what's that. So digital asset transformation is where we take your existing assets and transform them into something more meaningful and engaging for customers, such as your website, spreadsheets, brochures, and PowerPoints. Now, to help explain this a little further, I'd like to share a video with you, and hopefully you'll all be able to see this okay.
By the way, whilst this is running, Chris, I noticed that we're all using GoToWebinar today. They are introducing an ability to play native video, but it's under beta release. So we're going to be testing that out for them later in the series, and it'll be interesting to see how the performance is with that.
Okay, so thank you for watching. I hope everybody was able to view that okay. So let's go right ahead and start jumping into websites, platforms, and portals. So I'm sure most of you know what a website is, basically just a bunch of web pages. Now, websites can have interactive elements and embedded apps and such like, but there are some differences between them, so I'd like to share with you what I think some of the differences are. So let's start with portals. So portals, from my point of view, are a gateway, really, or a starting point that enables access to a whole wide range of resources, possibly from different places, like email, news, search engines, or weather. A good example of a public portal is MSN. So portals are not just available for public use. Companies can use portals for private use to provide their staff with access to resources like applications and systems and software. So portals bring information together from different resources. Content can be unique, personalized to users based on access rights or privileges. Companies can allow access to a wide range of systems and resources and applications. A platform is different to a portal, whereas really it's a structure, a framework where tools, services and applications can be embedded, similar to a website, and delivered to all your different devices, usually through the cloud. So, for those of you joining us online, I think we'd like to go to our interactive survey. So I'll pull the URL up now. And John, if you can post in the comments box the link to the survey.
Yeah, it's already in there. If you look in the chat function at the bottom, it says please use this link. It's deltachannels.com webinar. I hope you can see it at the bottom there. I'm just scrolling up and down there, yeah.
And the link is on the screen as well for those who would like to take part. So we'll just give everybody a couple of minutes to go to that link and get settled, John.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just, okay. I've got the link up on my end, so if you want to start taking us through it, Chris, I'm sure people will catch up.
Sure. So please ignore the answers I'm giving. I'm just going to put some random answers in. But let's start with when visiting a website. How long does it take a customer to decide whether to stay on the site and learn more, or leave or explore other companies? 60 seconds or more, 10 to 12 seconds, 30 seconds or more, or 5 to 10 seconds. So I'm just going to put a random answer in here. Click next. So how much in percentage would you say video increased learning, engagement and retention in comparison to text-based information?
So the options there were, sorry Chris, could you go, that's a bit quick for me. So the options there are no difference, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80%. Yeah, okay.
Okay, marketing. Which one of the following do you consider your customer responds to the most? Telemarketing, social media, self-discovery, meaning the customer finds their own information, or newsletters. And user experience. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you describe your customer's online user experience?
Of your existing digital assets today, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Content. On a scale of 1 to 10, how relevant do you think your content is to your customers?
Mm-hmm.
And question 6, the final question, presentation. How often do you use the following in presentations? PowerPoint, always, sometimes, or never. Video, always, sometimes, or never. Animations, always, sometimes, or never. Or personalized landing pages, always, sometimes, or never. Okay, so we'll just give everyone a minute or so to complete that. And actually, John, if you could pull up the results on your screen.
Hang on, I'm going to change presenter. That's all right. Okay, show my screen. So I'm just going to refresh these now. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this is. So what we're seeing here, Chris, then are the results of the little interactive survey we've done online with the people who are in the webinar today. Yeah.
So this is in real time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you just want to refresh that page again, John, make sure everyone's completed.
I just refreshed it now. Okay.
Okay, so on the first question, the most popular answer, and we've done it by most popular answer, is 10 seconds. And actually, best practice shows that we do have around 10 seconds to make an impression. That means when somebody's going onto a website, you know, is the company right for them? Do you get the right message? Is it what you're looking for? So around 10 seconds is right. Mm-hmm. And watching video. So the most popular answer was between 60 and 80%. And again, best practice shows around 75%.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got marketing. Most popular answer was social media. And actually, best practice shows that most customers are happy to discover information for themselves before engaging a sales rep or making a purchase. Okay, can you scroll down a bit, John?
Oh yeah, sorry, there we go.
Okay, so user experience, most popular answer was 5, and best practice shows 10. User experience online is very, very important to visitors to the website or on mobile, whichever device they're using. The experience that we get from websites is very, very important. Otherwise, people are just going to click off and check out the competition. Content on a scale of 1 to 10. Most popular answer again 5. Again, content is very important. Sending meaningful messages to customers, sending the right message is very, very important.
Chris, on this one, I know you were at the recent Martech exhibition in London, and I think this really was a hot theme for people, wasn't it? Relevant content, selecting content, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. The more personal, the more we can connect with people and engage with people. So whenever meaningful content to people, and the more personal that we can make it, it is a much better practice.
Okay.
Okay, so this is interesting presentation. Apparently nobody uses PowerPoint. Video, never. So those are the most popular answers out of those. Do you just want to refresh that page, John, in case people have...
Yeah, might be. Hang on, that's probably me finger problem at my end. I'm trying to look at the polls as well. Okay. So, okay, should I pass back to you then as presenter, Chris, to take us on the rest of the tour?
Sure. Okay, can you see my screen, John?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's move on to what I think is a good example of a SaaS website. So in this example, it should come up shortly for you. I've chosen Adobe Creative Cloud. So here are some of the things that I like about this website. The content is definitely meaningful to me. It's definitely relevant. It's very short and to the point. We have a video here, and I'll just start it off. So this shows me about the product, but actually shows me how I can be using the product. As we go down, again, content, but very relevant, very meaningful to me, very much straight to the point. The other thing I'd like to mention about websites at this point, I'm sure we all know, is really structure and layout. You know, we hear the phrases mobile first. I believe that, you know, that's true to an extent, but I think all devices are important, you know, and websites and digital assets should work well across devices. So if I can just demonstrate a couple of points here. So as we shrink the screen down, obviously it's responsive, which is great. If we shrink down to just close some of these windows that I have open. More of a mobile view, we can see that it fits nicely and resizes and lays itself out slightly differently for different devices. The other thing I like about Adobe is it will categorize plans and pricing for me. So I can see if I'm a photographer or a business, I can actually choose what's important to me, module by module, app by app. So I think this is a great example of a SaaS business website. So let's take a look at some apps. Now, here's an example of a spreadsheet. I have to do a lot of scrolling backwards and forwards. And let's see an example of how we managed to transform a spreadsheet into an online app. So this is Delta Plan Partner. So all this is created or transformed from an Excel spreadsheet. So we can see that instead of me scrolling, we have a nice menu here to show the different navigations, the different sections. So very, very user-friendly, and again, user experience is great. And actually, on here we can see an example of a survey, but actually more in depth. So on this, we can have analysis, recommendations. Okay, and here we're making a comparison between solution type, solution commercials, so we can select different structures, amount of subscribers, cost of customer acquisition, and churn rate. So we can see that it's a lot more user-friendly than the spreadsheet I showed you a moment ago. Again, we can make a comparison between on-premise and software as a service. And we can get some values here from previous inputs. Market opportunity. And finally, it comes up with a revenue plan, which we can add new actions in. So I think that's a good example of how we can transform a spreadsheet into an online app. Okay, and the final thing I'd like to talk about is how we can make presentations. So if we just open up this page, go into full screen. So here I've created a mock-up of a landing page that perhaps you could use with your company logo. We can add videos to the page to send more personal messages, more relevant content. We can add things like your LinkedIn ID, email, telephone, brochure downloads, PDFs, charts and graphs, product information, and actually we can help engage with clients by leaving comments and allowing the customer to comment and talk to us online. So this really creates a lot of meaningful content and a more personal approach to presentations to your customers. Okay, John. So on that, I'll pass back over to you.
Thanks, Chris. I'll just be 1 second. Right, okay, I appreciate that was quite a whirlwind tour over quite a number of different topics. I did get a little feedback that some people have problems with the URL for that online survey, so we will send that out afterwards. I think also, Chris, you're intending to send people a link to a landing page so they can go through at their own pace some of these assets and ideas, yeah?
That's right. And everything I've presented there, we'll send some links out so people can go and have a play with all the resources we've shown today.
Okay, that's great. And I know also we had an idea that depending on the feedback from the survey, we're going to offer a free, what we call a AAA asset assessment and advice. That's one of the questions that has come in really, is around how can people repurpose digital assets and or existing assets and what's involved. I don't know if you've got a quick comment on that, Chris.
Yeah, I think again we can send out some information to people, you know, so that they can get more of a feel for it.
Okay. And then I think the idea was, I know you very quickly flicked through that sales and marketing planning tool where you were showing an example app of how you can move from a spreadsheet to a tool that sales and marketing teams can use internally and perhaps with customers to look at things like lifetime contract value and total cost of ownership. But again, in today's session, it was just a very quick taste of it. So I think we're intending to send out a link for a 14-day free trial, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for that. I mean, we're running a little bit out of time. If there are any questions, happy to take them now in terms of the hands up or the chat function. If not, once we've sent out the landing page and the links to some of the assets that we've looked at, we'd be very happy to set up a discussion online or otherwise. So if you have got any questions, there's a minute or two left to do that right now. I also just wanted to point out that the next session, which is on the 7th of November at the same time, albeit the clocks will have fallen back, we're going to have a much more in-depth deep dive around some of these SaaS websites that Chris took us on a high-level tour of today, the Adobe one, which I do think looks very nice, and I'm sure there are other examples of that we will be sharing, and the interactive media, and perhaps this session will be a little bit more hands-on in terms of what's involved in creating it and how to use it in practice. So I haven't seen any questions come through just now, but as I know we're up to our 45 minutes, so I'd like to thank everyone for attending, and we look forward to an ongoing dialogue and seeing you next time. So thank you now, and goodbye.